I never thought I'd be the girl whose boyfriend stole her dead grandmother's ring right out of her jewelry box and then tried to pass it off as a romantic proposal. But here we are. And no, I'm not overreacting. I'm not being dramatic. I'm telling you what happened and you can decide for yourself if I'm crazy or if he's the villain. But before I get into the ring, let me back up. My name's not important, but what matters is that I grew up close to my grandma. She was the one who taught me how to bake, how to garden, how to spot a liar from a mile away. She passed 3 years ago and her jewelry box, the one with the little ballerina that spins when you open it, was the only thing I asked for. Inside was a silver locket with her mom's photo, a pair of pearl earrings she wore to her wedding, and her engagement ring. That ring was everything. A tiny diamond in a rose gold setting, nothing flashy, but it was hers. She used to tell me stories about how my grandpa saved up for 2 years to buy it. Love isn't about the price tag, she'd say, it's about the sacrifice. I kept that ring in my jewelry box on my dresser, not hidden, just there. I looked at it sometimes when I missed her. My boyfriend, let's call him Ethan, knew how much it meant to me. We'd been together for 2 years. He knew about my grandma, knew about the ring. He'd even seen me hold it once when I was having a bad day. I thought he understood. So when he got down on one knee last Saturday night at dinner, our favorite Italian place, candles, the whole thing, and pulled out that ring, my heart stopped. But not in a good way, because I recognized it. The tiny diamond, the rose gold, the slight scratch on the band from when Grandma dropped it in the sink. It was hers. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just stared at him and said, "Where did you get that?" He smiled, thinking I was going to say yes. "I found it in your jewelry box. I knew you wanted a meaningful proposal, so I thought, why not use your grandma's ring? It's perfect." And I felt something cold crawl up my spine. He didn't ask, he didn't even mention it. He just took it, stole it actually from my jewelry box without telling me, and then he presented it to me in a restaurant like it was a sweet gesture. I put my hand over my mouth. "You stole my grandmother's ring." His face dropped. "Stole? No, babe, I borrowed it. I was going to put it back after you said yes, we'd get our own ring later." "You took it without asking," I said, my voice shaking. "That's stealing, Ethan." The waitress came over. I asked for the check. He tried to argue, saying I was overreacting, that it was romantic, that he wanted to surprise me. But all I could think about was my grandma's ring being taken out of its box by someone who didn't have the right. He didn't even ask permission. He just assumed. I'm still processing it. We left the restaurant and I drove home alone. He called me 7 times. I didn't answer. The next morning I found the ring on my kitchen counter. He'd slid it under my door while I was asleep. No note, no apology, just the ring. Like that made everything better. That was 2 days ago. I haven't spoken to him since. And now I'm sitting here wondering if I'm the one who's crazy. Because some of my friends say it's a red flag, but others say he just made a clumsy romantic mistake. He loves you, they say. He just wanted to make the proposal special. But here's the thing. I've been burned before by people who take without asking. And I've learned that love isn't about grand gestures, it's about respect. And taking something precious without consent, that's not romantic, that's betrayal. So that's the story that brings me here today, but it's not the only story. Because sometimes the people closest to you, the ones who say they love you, show you who they really are in the smallest, most painful ways. And that got me thinking about another time someone close to me crossed a line. Not a boyfriend, but a colleague. A person who decided they knew better than me about my own life, my own body, my own boundaries. And that story, it starts in an office with a woman named Melinda and a secret I never meant to keep. Her name was Melinda and she was the office snoop. I worked in that office for 9 years, worked my way up from the bottom, and I made a rule for myself back on day one. Work is work, home is home. I never, ever talked about my personal life. Not because I was ashamed. I had a husband, twin daughters, a nice house, a dog. I played softball and kayaked and climbed mountains sometimes. I just didn't think my coworkers needed to know that stuff. I liked keeping my work life separate. I liked being able to focus on spreadsheets and deadlines instead of explaining why my daughter's JoJo Siwa phase was driving me up the wall. My coworkers thought I was mysterious. They'd try to ask me what I did over the weekend and I'd say, "Oh, nothing special," and turn the conversation back to them. It worked fine for years. I made real friends at that office, people I could talk to about movies and books and work projects. We just didn't know each other's home addresses or kids' names. And that was okay. Then Melinda was hired about a year ago. She was friendly at first, the kind of person who remembers everyone's coffee order and brings in homemade cookies. But there was something off about how she collected information. She didn't just chat, she probed. She'd ask you about your childhood, your parents, your relationship status, your weekend plans, and if you deflected, she'd circle back later with a new angle. She was like a journalist working a story, except the story was our private lives. I dodged her questions like a pro. I'd laugh and say, "You're so nosy, Melinda," and she'd laugh too, but her eyes would narrow. She couldn't get anything on me. For months she tried. She'd ask about my vacation plans and I'd say staying home, relaxing. She'd ask if I had a boyfriend and I'd say not really. That was true, I had a husband, not a boyfriend, but she didn't know that. Then last Friday she came into work looking like the cat that swallowed the goldfish. She was practically glowing. At lunch she gathered everyone in the break room and announced with this smug little smile that she had figured out the mystery of Ali. "Ali is married," she said, looking right at me. She has twin daughters, a dog, a nice house in the suburbs. She plays softball, she kayaks, she mountain climbs, and she's on Facebook under her married name. I felt my face go hot, all heads turned to me. I didn't say anything. I just stared at Melinda and asked, "How did you find that out?" She shrugged like it was nothing. "I did a white pages search combined with your shortened name. Your profile picture is shared with friends of friends. It wasn't hard." Everyone was silent. I could see some of my coworkers were uncomfortable. They knew I valued my privacy. Melinda, meanwhile, was basking in the attention. She decracked the code of the office enigma and she wanted everyone to know. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just said, "That's an invasion of my privacy," and got up and walked back to my desk. My hands were shaking. I called HR that afternoon. Now here's the thing, I'm not the first person Melinda has done this to. Hank, Rob, and Lucy all learned the hard way that sharing personal info freely can backfire. Lucy talked about her divorce and Melinda used it to undermine her in a meeting. Rob mentioned his side hustle and Melinda reported him to management for a conflict of interest even though it was approved. Hank had a medical issue and Melinda spread it around the office like gossip. So when I reported her for stalking my online presence, HR already had a file on her. But here's the crazy part, some of my coworkers actually sided with Melinda. They said I was being too secretive. They said if I just opened up more, none of this would have happened. They said it was weird that I never talked about my family. I couldn't believe it. I was the victim of a privacy violation and people were blaming me for being private. My boss didn't blame me. He took it seriously. Melinda got a written warning and was moved to a different team, but the damage was done. After that, I felt like everyone was watching me, waiting to see what other secrets I was hiding. I started eating lunch at my desk with the door closed. The thing that really pissed me off, Melinda didn't even apologize. She acted like she'd done me a favor. "Now everyone knows you're a real person," she said to me once in the hallway. "You don't have to hide anymore." I wanted to scream. I wasn't hiding. I was just protecting my boundaries. And the scary part is she still works there. I still see her at the coffee machine. She smiles at me like we're friends now, but I know what she's capable of. That was a year ago. I've learned to be even more careful. But seeing that ring on my boyfriend's hand last week brought it all back. The feeling of someone taking something that belongs to you, something precious you never agreed to share, and using it for their own purposes. Whether it's a secret or a grandmother's ring, the violation feels the same. And that's not the only time I've seen someone twist my life into a weapon. Just last month, a coworker at my part-time job, let's call her Casey, decided she knew more about my disabilities than my own doctors. I have chronic pain. It's a thing I've dealt with for years. I don't talk about it much at work, but I have a handicap placard for my car and I use canes on my bad days. My boss, Amy, knows about my condition. She's been supportive. But Casey, she wanted my job. She wanted a promotion and I was the new person who seemed to be getting all the attention because of my special treatment. So Casey started watching me. She took note of every day I didn't use my cane. She saw me laughing with coworkers, walking across the parking lot without limping. And instead of thinking, "Hey, she's having a good day," she thought, "She's faking it." One afternoon, I found out Casey had been filming me. She deparked her car next to mine and recorded me getting out of my car on a day I felt okay. No cane, no visible pain. She showed the video to Amy, claiming I was lying about my disability. She said I was using my fake condition to get special privileges. Amy didn't buy it. She told Casey that chronic pain isn't visible every minute and that my medical documentation was already on file. But Casey didn't stop. She started following me after work, taking photos of me at the grocery store, at the park with my kids. She even tried to get other coworkers to spy on me. I filed a complaint with HR. I also filed a police report for stalking. The police didn't do much. They said it was a workplace issue, but I was terrified. I'm a black woman in Texas, and I knew how the system treated people like me. I didn't feel safe. Amy eventually put Casey on a performance improvement plan for unrelated reasons and Casey stopped talking to me, but the damage was done. I couldn't walk into the office without feeling like I was being watched. I thought I'd escaped that kind of invasion at my main job. But now, with the ring with Ethan, I'm starting to wonder if I'm a magnet for people who think they have the right to take pieces of my life without asking. I haven't called Ethan back yet. I'm not sure I will. Some of my friends say he just made a clumsy mistake. But I know what trust looks like, and I know what it feels like to have it broken. And every time someone tells me I'm overreacting, I remember Melinda's smile and Casey's camera and the ring sitting cold in my jewelry box, waiting for someone to ask permission first. I thought it was over after Amy put Casey on a performance improvement plan, but Casey didn't stop. She was obsessed with proving I was a fraud. About 2 weeks after the PIP, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was a photo of me picking up a prescription at the pharmacy. I was leaning on my cane, waiting for the pharmacist. The message said, "Nice acting, you should win an Oscar." I didn't respond. I showed it to Amy. Amy told HR again. HR sent Casey an official warning about contacting me outside of work. But Casey didn't need to contact me directly. She had her friends. Or maybe she was doing it herself from a burner phone. I don't know. What I do know is that 3 days later, I found a note on my windshield. It said, "We know you're lying. Stop wasting company resources." I was shaking when I called the non-emergency police line. The officer who answered listened to me explain that a coworker was stalking me, taking photos, leaving notes. He asked, has she threatened you physically? Not directly, but this is harassment. She's following me after work. Ma'am, we can't do much unless she makes a direct threat or you catch her in the act. You can file a report, but it'll likely just be a record. I filed the report anyway. The officer took my statement, gave me a case number, and said someone might follow up. No one ever did. I'm black. I live in Texas. I knew exactly what that meant. The system wasn't built to protect someone like me from someone like Casey, a white woman who looked harmless, who smiled at the front desk every morning. I was the one who appeared angry, difficult, secretive. That was the narrative she was crafting. She started spreading rumors around the office. I heard from a friend in accounting that Casey was telling people I had filed a false police report. She said I was trying to get her fired for standing up to me. She painted me as the aggressor. My anxiety went through the roof. I couldn't sleep. I started driving different routes to work, checking my rearview mirror constantly. I'd look out my window at night, wondering if she was out there with her camera. Amy did what she could. She moved my desk to a more private area. She told the team that any form of surveillance of coworkers was prohibited, but she couldn't control what Casey did off the clock. The breaking point came about a month after the first video. I was at the grocery store buying milk and bread when I felt a familiar prickling on the back of my neck. I turned around and saw Casey at the end of the aisle, phone pointed at me. She didn't even try to hide it. I walked straight up to her. What are you doing? She lowered her phone slowly. Just shopping, coincidence. You've been following me, I have a police report, she laughed. A police report based on what? A video of you walking? You're not even using your cane today, that's the point. I looked down at my hands, they were empty. It was a good day, one of those blessed fours where my body almost felt normal, but that didn't mean I wasn't in pain, it just meant I could function without extra support. I have chronic pain, I said, my voice tight. I don't need to be in agony every second for my disability to be real, she shrugged. Tell that to HR or the police. They didn't believe you either, did they? I didn't say anything else. I walked away, my chest burning. I finished my shopping with tears in my eyes. When I got to my car, I sat there for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. That night, I wrote a long email to Amy and HR. I detailed every incident, the video, the photos, the note, the text, the grocery store confrontation. I attached the police report number. I asked for a formal restraining order within the company, no contact, no shared shifts, no overlapping break times. HR took it seriously this time. Casey was suspended pending an investigation. 2 weeks later, they decided not to renew her contract. She was let go. But that doesn't feel like a victory, because even now, months later, I still look over my shoulder. I still check my car before I get in. I still feel like I have to prove my pain is real, like I'm on trial for the crime of having a good day. And the worst part, Casey still posts about me online. I found her Twitter once, late at night, scrolling through her timeline. She had a thread about fake disabled people milking the system. She didn't use my name, but she described me, the cane, the part-time job, the handicap placard. People in the comments were praising her for exposing the truth. I haven't reported that. What's the point? The internet is a cesspool, and I'm just one woman with chronic pain trying to live my life. But writing this out, telling the whole story, makes me realize something. The ring with my grandmother's diamond, the office snoop, the coworker with the camera, they're all the same story. It's about people who think they have the right to take pieces of someone else's life without asking. My privacy. My pain. My belongings, they all got taken. I still haven't called Ethan back. I don't know if I will. Some things can't be fixed by an apology. Some things, once broken, stay broken. And that's the thing about trust. When someone takes it without permission, it doesn't matter how pretty the ring is. It just feels like theft. I thought about all the times my boundaries had been crossed. It started long before Ethan. It started with a coworker named Melinda. I worked at this office for 9 years. 9 years of keeping my head down, doing my job, and never once talking about my personal life. Not because I was ashamed, I wasn't. But because I learned early on that work is work and home is home, and if you blur those lines, someone always ends up taking something you never offered. I never told anyone I was married. Never mentioned my twin daughters. Never brought up that I played softball, kayaked, or mountain climbed on weekends. I didn't even have a single photo on my desk. People thought I was mysterious. I thought I was just private. Then Melinda got hired. She came in all smiles and energy, and at first I thought she was just friendly. She made a point to get close to everyone, brought in coffee, remembered birthdays, asked questions that seemed innocent. But the longer she stayed, the more I noticed something off about her questions. She didn't just ask how your weekend was, she asked where you went, who you went with, what you ate. She took notes. I saw her once typing into her phone after a conversation with a coworker. I kept my answers vague, redirected. Talked about a TV show I was watching or the weather. She'd smile and nod, but I could tell she was frustrated. For months, she tried to crack me. She'd corner me at the coffee machine. You never talk about yourself, Ali. Don't you have a boyfriend? I'd say not really and walk away. She'd try again the next week. I didn't think much of it. I had friends at work, good people. We talked about movies, sports, office politics. I wasn't lonely. I just didn't need them to know about my home life. Then came the Friday I'll never forget. Melinda walked into the break room looking like the cat who swallowed the whole goldfish. She waited until the lunch crowd was gathered, maybe 10 of us, and then she announced it. Like she was presenting evidence. So I found out Ali's secret, she said, grinning. She's married, has twin daughters, a dog, a nice house, plays softball and kayaks, and she's on Facebook but under a different name. The room went quiet. Everyone looked at me. I didn't scream. I didn't even stand up. I just sat there holding my sandwich, feeling like someone had opened a door I had locked for 9 years. Melinda kept talking. She uses Ali instead of Alexandra and her married name is different, but I put it together with white pages. Pretty clever, but not clever enough. I asked her how she found my Facebook. She shrugged. Saw one of your photos shared by a mutual friend. Then I did some digging. I felt sick. My daughter's faces were on that Facebook, not public, I thought, but shared with friends. She must have found a way in through someone else. I never even knew which friend. The worst part wasn't the announcement. It was the way Melinda smiled, like she had won something, like my entire personal life was a prize she had earned by being nosy. I stood up, walked to my desk, and called HR. I filed a formal complaint. I told them Melinda had invaded my privacy, used company time to stalk me online, and created a hostile environment. HR took it seriously. They had a meeting with Melinda. She was told to stop, but the damage was done. Within a week, everyone in the office knew about my husband, my kids, my hobbies. People started treating me differently. They'd ask about my daughters by name. They'd invite me to weekend softball games. They meant well, but it felt like I had lost control of my own story. Melinda kept her job. She stopped talking to me, but I caught her watching me sometimes. Like she was waiting for me to slip up again. I stayed at that job for another 2 years, but I never felt safe there again. I started keeping my bag locked in my desk. I checked my social media settings obsessively. I even changed my profile photo to something generic, and that's the thing about privacy. Once someone takes it, you can't just put it back. It's like a crack in a windshield. It spreads even when you're not looking. I left that office eventually, got a new job, started fresh, swore I'd be even more careful this time, but then Casey came along, and then Ethan. And now I'm sitting here thinking about all the times someone decided they had a right to my life without asking. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I scroll through Reddit and read other people's stories. It helps to know I'm not alone. There was this one post I came across that really stuck with me, not about real life, about a fictional character, but it captured exactly the kind of betrayal I've been feeling. It was about Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. Most people talk about how he slept with Dr. Doom's fiancée, but that's not the worst part. The worst part is what he did to his girlfriend Sky. See, Johnny and Sky had a soul bond. They wore rings that connected their hearts. So when Johnny slept with another woman before she was engaged, they say, but still, Sky felt everything through that ring. She felt every touch, every moment of betrayal like a hot wire running through her chest, and Johnny knew it. He knew the ring would make her feel it, and he did it anyway. That's not just cheating. That's a violation on a level most people can't even imagine. I read that post and I couldn't stop thinking about Sky. About how she must have felt standing in her kitchen or lying in bed and suddenly her whole body telling her something was wrong. Not a suspicion, not a gut feeling, a literal physical sensation of her boyfriend being with someone else. And then trying to process that, trying to make sense of it while Johnny stood there acting like it wasn't his fault, like he was the victim. I thought about my grandmother's ring. The way its weight on my finger had always felt like belonging. And then the way it felt that day Ethan held it out in that restaurant, cheap and wrong. He had taken something sacred, not just the object but the meaning, and used it for a performance. He knew I kept it in my jewelry box. He knew it was the last thing my grandma gave me before she passed. He knew and he took it anyway, like he had a right to it, like his plan mattered more than my memory. That's what connects all these stories. People who cross a line they never should have crossed. Melinda digging through my Facebook. Casey filming me in the grocery store. Ethan stealing a ring from my home. They all convinced themselves they were in the right. Melinda thought she was exposing a mysterious coworker. Casey thought she was proving I was faking. Ethan thought he was being romantic, but none of them asked. None of them stopped to consider that my privacy, my pain, my belongings, they weren't theirs to take. I still haven't called Ethan. It's been 3 weeks now. He left a voicemail 2 days ago, his voice shaky, saying he understood if I needed space, but that he really wanted to talk. I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. Part of me wonders if I'm being too harsh. He's crying, he's sorry, he thought it would be a beautiful surprise. But that's the thing about surprises, they're only beautiful if the other person wants them. He never asked, he never even hinted, he just took. And now I'm sitting here in my apartment, the ring back on my finger, and I still feel like something is missing. Not the ring, something deeper. The trust that he would respect my boundaries even when he thought he knew better. The last I heard from the office is that Casey's contract wasn't renewed, but she's appealing. My boss Amy told me to keep documentation of anything new. So far there's nothing, just silence and the occasional car that looks like hers parked down the street. I tell myself I'm paranoid. But then I remember the note taped to my windshield. We're watching you. I reported it to the police again. They said they'd send a patrol car by my neighborhood a few times a week. I haven't seen one yet. Some nights I stay up late reading stories online, trying to feel less alone. There was one about a woman whose all-male D&D group kept trying to control her character. They'd argue every time she made a move. They'd change the rules mid-game. They'd gang up on her when she tried to roleplay. She left the group eventually, and people in the comments told her she was overreacting. Sound familiar? Every time I read one of those, I feel a little less crazy. Because the pattern is the same everywhere. Someone decides they know better. Someone decides your life is theirs to manage, and when you push back, you're the one who gets called difficult. That's why I'm writing this all down, not for Ethan, not for Melinda or Casey, for me. Because I need to remember that my boundaries are real, that my pain is real, and that I don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting myself. A few days ago, I took Grandma's ring to a jeweler. I asked him to clean it, check the prongs, make sure the diamond was secure. He looked at it under the magnifying glass and said, "This is a beautiful piece. How long have you had it?" I told him it had been in my family for 50 years. He smiled and said, "Good, some things should stay in the family." He didn't ask how I got it back. He didn't need to. When I put it back on my finger that afternoon, it felt different, heavier, not a weight of sentiment, but a weight of what it survived. And maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not supposed to go back to being just a pretty thing. Maybe it's supposed to remind me that I survived it too. I'm still not sure what I'll do about Ethan. But I know one thing for sure, if he ever wants to propose again, he'll have to start from scratch, earn the right to even talk about forever. And he'll have to ask permission before he so much as looks at my jewelry box. Some people will say I'm being too harsh. They'll say he made a mistake, that love should be forgiving, but they weren't there. They didn't feel what I felt when I opened that box and saw the empty velvet. Like someone had reached into my chest and taken a piece of my history. I think about Sky from that Reddit post, how she must have felt when the ring pulsed with Johnny's betrayal, how she must have looked at him differently after that, not with anger, with a cold, quiet knowledge that he didn't care enough to protect her. That's the part nobody talks about, not the cheating, not the theft. The knowing that the person you trusted didn't even think about you before they acted. I'm not Sky. And Ethan isn't Johnny Storm, but the feeling is the same. The slow, creeping realization that someone you loved didn't see you. They saw an idea, a prop in their own story. I'm done being a prop. I'm going back to work tomorrow. I'll smile at my coworkers. I'll do my job. And I'll keep my ring on my finger close to my chest. If anyone asks, I'll say it's a family heirloom. That's all they need to know, because some things belong only to me and I'm not letting anyone take them again. But that's not the only workplace horror story I've heard. There's another one that's been on my mind. I saw it on Reddit a few weeks ago and it hit so close to home I almost couldn't finish reading. It's about a woman with chronic pain who just wanted to do her job. She didn't ask for drama, she didn't ask for a stalker, but she got one anyway. Her name, well, she used a throwaway, so I'll just call her what I remember. She had chronic pain, the kind that's always there, like a low hum, sometimes spiking to a scream. She explained it once: normal people walk around at a pain level of 1 or 2. She lived at a 6. Imagine pulling a muscle in your back and never quite recovering. That was her baseline. She worked 2 jobs. Full-time during the day, part-time in the evenings. The part-time gig was at an office where she was an assistant coordinator. She used a cane on bad days, had a handicapped placard for her car, and had all the proper paperwork filed for accommodations. She never hid it, but she also never made it her whole personality. She showed up, did her work, and went home. Then Casey joined the team. Casey was ambitious. Everyone knew she wanted a promotion. She was also the type who thought success meant tearing other people down. She saw her OOP, let's call her Jane, as an obstacle. Jane didn't want the promotion, but Casey didn't believe her. She thought Jane was hiding something, maybe playing the disability card to get special treatment. The first sign of trouble was when Casey started asking invasive questions. Why do you park so close to the door? Why don't you use your cane today? Are you sure you need that accommodation? Jane deflected politely at first, then started giving short answers. Casey didn't stop, she escalated. One Sunday, Jane was having a particularly rough day, pain level 8 or 9. She had to use her cane just to get to the grocery store. She was in the produce aisle, leaning on the cart, trying to grab a bag of apples when she noticed someone staring. It was Casey. Holding her phone up, filming her, Jane froze. Casey didn't lower the phone, she just kept recording, a little smirk on her face. Jane turned around and walked away. She didn't scream, she didn't call security, she just wanted to disappear, but the damage was done. The next morning at work, Casey announced to the whole team that she had proof Jane wasn't really disabled. She played the video on her phone. Everyone saw Jane struggling to reach for apples, using her cane, looking exhausted. And Casey's voiceover said, "See, she's walking just fine, she only uses the cane for sympathy." Jane's boss Amy pulled her aside later. Amy was on her side. She told Casey to delete the video and stop harassing Jane. Casey pretended to comply, but Jane knew better. The video was already shared. Then came the notes, taped to her windshield in the parking lot. "You're a faker. We're watching you. Tell the truth or else." Jane reported it to the police. They told her it was a workplace issue, not a criminal matter. She filed a complaint with HR. Casey got a warning, but Casey didn't stop. She followed Jane to another grocery store the next week. This time Jane caught her in the parking lot, phone out, recording again. Jane yelled at her to stop. Casey laughed and said, "I'm just documenting your recovery. Isn't that what disabled people want? Awareness." Jane's hands were shaking when she called the police again. They said they'd send a patrol car. They never did. The situation got worse. Casey started showing up at Jane's house, just driving by slowly, according to her neighbor's security camera. Jane installed her own camera. She got footage of Casey's car circling the block 3 times at 11 p.m. She took it to the police. They said, she's not on your property so it's not trespassing, come back when she does something illegal. Jane felt like she was losing her mind. She started sleeping with her phone next to her bed, she stopped going out after dark, she lost weight. Her full-time job started noticing she was distracted. She almost got written up for missing a deadline, then HR called her in for a meeting. Casey had filed a complaint against her for hostile behavior and false claims of harassment. Jane sat there in the conference room, staring at Casey across the table, and felt her blood turn cold. Casey had printed out screenshots of Jane's social media, photos of her hiking with friends on good days, wearing shorts, smiling, no cane, no pain. Casey pointed at them and said, look at her, she's perfectly healthy, she just wants special treatment. Jane had to explain for the 100th time that chronic pain isn't constant. Some days are better, some days you can climb a mountain. But that doesn't mean you weren't in agony the day before. The HR manager nodded, but Jane could tell he was uncomfortable. She could tell he didn't fully believe her. Amy defended her, called Casey's behavior unprofessional and vindictive. But Casey had been at the company longer, she had allies, and Jane was the one with the cane and the handicap placard, the easy target. Eventually, after weeks of tension, the company decided to part ways with Casey. Her contract wasn't renewed, but she was appealing the decision. Jane's boss warned her to keep documentation of anything new. So far it's been quiet. But Jane still checks her rearview mirror every time she drives home. She still flinches when a car slows down near her house. I read her updates. The last one mentioned that Casey had started posting on local social media groups, calling Jane a fraud and taking resources from real disabled people. Jane's address was shared in the comments. She had to file a restraining order. The police finally took it seriously after she showed them the posts. But the damage was done. Jane said she didn't feel safe in her own town. She was looking for a new job, maybe even a new city. She wrote that she never wanted to be a victim. She just wanted to buy apples without being filmed. Reading that story, I felt sick because it's the same pattern. Someone decides they know your truth better than you do. They watch you, they document you, they use your own life as evidence against you. And when you push back, you're the one who looks difficult. I thought about my own coworker Melinda, the office snoop who dug through my Facebook and announced my marriage to everyone. I thought about how she sat there at that lunch table smug like she'd won some prize. She didn't care about my privacy. She cared about having power over me, same with Casey. She didn't actually think Jane was faking, she just needed a weapon. And Jane's disability was an easy one to weaponize because it's invisible, because people love to doubt invisible pain. There's a term for it, medical gaslighting, when someone tells you your illness isn't real because you don't look sick. Casey did that. Melinda did that in a different way by exposing details I never consented to share. And Ethan did it when he stole my grandmother's ring thinking the ends justified the means. They all thought they were entitled to my story, my body, my belongings. My pain, but they weren't, and I'm done pretending they were. I still don't know what I'll do about Ethan. Maybe I'll call him next week. Maybe I'll never speak to him again, but I know one thing for sure, I'm not going to let anyone tell me I'm overreacting. Not him, not Casey, not Melinda, not the police who didn't bother to patrol my street. I'm holding on to my ring. I'm holding on to my boundaries. And I'm writing this down so that if I ever start to doubt myself, I can look back and remember, I wasn't the one who crossed the line. They were. But not all betrayal comes wrapped in a ring box or a hidden video. Sometimes it's written in the fabric of a fictional universe and you still feel it in your chest. I saw a post a while back that broke down exactly why Johnny Storm is the worst kind of cheater. Not because he slept with Dr. Doom's fiancée, everyone focuses on that, but because he was in a relationship with Skye, this woman who came from another dimension to be with him. They wore rings that literally bound their souls. And when Johnny had sex with Zora before Victor even proposed, by the way Skye felt it, through the soul bond, she felt the betrayal in real time. Imagine that. You're connected to someone on a spiritual level. You trust them. You moved worlds for them. And then you feel something that isn't love. You feel someone else's touch, someone else's breath. And the guy knows it. He knows you'll feel it. He does it anyway. That's not just cheating. That's something worse. That's using a soul link as a weapon. The post went viral because people finally stopped focusing on the drama between Doom and Storm and looked at what he did to Skye. She cried. She probably needed therapy for years. And Johnny just stood there like it wasn't his fault, yelling at Ben Grimm as if Ben had done something wrong. I read the comments under that post. One person said they loved how Nammer was laughing his ass off in the panels. Another pointed out that Reed Richards reached across 4 panels just to smack Johnny. And someone else just wrote SMEK with no explanation. But underneath the jokes there was real anger, because we've all known someone like Johnny. The guy who thinks his charm excuses his cruelty. The guy who takes something sacred like a soul bond or a promise or a ring and breaks it because he wants what he wants. I thought about that when I looked at my grandmother's ring sitting on my nightstand. I hadn't touched it since I took it back from Ethan. It felt heavier now, not because of the gold or the diamond, but because of what it represented: trust, history. My grandmother wore that ring for 40 years. She never took it off. She told me once that she and my grandfather had their ups and downs, but she always knew where his heart was. He never stole from her. He never lied to her face and then acted like she was crazy for being upset. Ethan did all of that. And when I think about Johnny Storm, I see the same pattern. The entitlement, the belief that love means you can take what you want and it's okay because you'll make it up later. But some things can't be made up. Some feelings don't go away just because you apologize. And then there's the other kind of betrayal, the kind that happens at work in broad daylight with everyone watching. I mentioned Melinda earlier, the office snoop who dug up my marriage and my kids and my dog and my house. But I never told the full story because at the time I thought it was just a petty annoyance. Looking back, it was a warning sign, a preview of how easily people will strip away your privacy if you let them. I worked at that office for 9 years. 9 years of keeping my work life and home life completely separate. It wasn't that I was ashamed. I just didn't think my coworkers needed to know that I had twin daughters who loved JoJo Siwa or that I kayaked on weekends or that my husband snored. I wasn't hiding anything. I was just protecting a part of myself. Some people bring their whole lives to work. I bring a version of me that's professional and friendly and nothing else. That drove Melinda crazy. She was hired about a year before the incident and she made it her mission to get close to everyone, not because she cared, but because she collected secrets the way some people collect stamps. She'd remember who was having marital trouble, who was looking for a new job, who had a sick parent. Then she'd use that information at the right moment. A little comment here, a favor there. People trusted her because she seemed so interested, but she was just building a file. With me, she hit a wall. I redirected every question. I didn't complain about my husband. I didn't show pictures of my kids. I didn't mention my weekend plans. I was a ghost in plain sight, and I could tell it bothered her. She'd stare at me sometimes during meetings like she was trying to crack a code. Then one Friday she came in looking like she'd won the lottery. At lunch, she announced to everyone that I was married, had 2 daughters, a dog, a nice house, and that I played softball, kayaked, and mountain climbed. She even knew my Facebook page. I used a shortened version of my name and my married name so it wasn't easy to find. But she'd used white pages or something to connect the dots. She stood there in the break room grinning while everyone looked at me. Some people were surprised, others looked betrayed like I'd been lying to them. I hadn't lied, I just hadn't shared. But to them that was almost the same thing. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just said, "Okay, you found me, good job," and I walked back to my desk. But inside I was shaking because she didn't do it to be friendly, she did it to win. She did it to show me that she could get past my walls. And she did it in front of everyone so that I couldn't ignore it. The next week, I filed a complaint with HR. I explained the pattern of snooping and the public announcement. Melinda claimed she was just trying to include me, that she thought I was being private because I had something to hide. HR did a mediation. Melinda apologized, but it was the kind of apology that sounds like an accusation. "I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable, but I just thought people should know you." After that, things got quiet, but the damage was done. I stopped feeling safe at work. I started locking my desk drawers. I changed my Facebook settings to everything private. I even stopped posting photos of my kids anywhere. My husband asked why I seemed on edge. I told him about Melinda. He said, "Just ignore her." But you can't ignore someone who has already proven they're willing to cross a line. I started looking for a new job. It took 6 months, but I found one. I gave my notice, and on my last day, Melinda came up to me and said, "I hope we can stay in touch." I just stared at her. She didn't get it. She genuinely thought she'd done nothing wrong. That was the scariest part. So when I read about Jane, the woman with chronic pain whose coworker filmed her buying apples and then posted her address online, I recognized that same face, that same false innocence. "I'm just documenting your recovery. I'm just trying to include you." They always have a reason. They always frame it as concern or curiosity. But underneath, it's control. It's taking something you never offered. I'm still dealing with the fallout from Ethan. We haven't spoken in 2 weeks. My mom calls me every day to check in. She says she'll support whatever I decide, but I can hear in her voice that she hopes I'll give him another chance. She loved him. She loved the idea of him using grandma's ring. She doesn't see the theft. She sees the romance. But I see Johnny Storm. I see Melinda. I see Casey with her phone in the grocery store. I see all the people who think they know better, who think the end justifies the means, who think their version of love or truth is more important than someone else's boundaries. And I'm done letting them write my story. I thought I was overreacting when I first noticed Casey watching me. It was a Tuesday, I think maybe 3 weeks after I transferred to the new location. I'd just come back from lunch and I saw her standing in the doorway of the break room, phone in hand, pointed in my direction. I waved. She smiled and put the phone down. I figured she was texting. But then it happened again and again. I'd be walking to my car after my shift. I work this part-time job on top of my full-time gig to pad my savings, keep my anxiety in check. And I'd catch her reflection in a window or see her car 2 spaces away when I pulled into the grocery store. I told myself it was a coincidence. We lived in the same area, sort of. Texas is big, but people end up at the same HEB, but the chronic pain doesn't lie. I've had it for years. Some days I'm at a 6 or 7 on the pain scale, and on those days I use my canes. I have a handicap placard hanging from my rearview mirror. My license plate has the disability marker. I filed all the paperwork with my job the day I was hired, both jobs. I was open about it with my boss Amy because Amy needed to know why I might need to sit down suddenly or why I took occasional breaks to stretch. Casey was the same position as me, assistant coordinator. She wanted a promotion. I was clear about that. I said, I'm not here to climb the ladder. I just like the work and the extra money. Casey looked at me like I was lying. She couldn't understand why someone would have a job and not want to move up. To her, that meant I was hiding something. She started asking pointed questions. Why do you have a cane today? You were fine yesterday. I explained fluctuating pain levels. She didn't believe me. You walked fine at the department meeting, she said. You even carried a box of files. That's the thing about invisible disabilities. People see you on a good day and assume you're always that way. They don't see the 3 hours you spent on the couch afterward, heating pad on your back, ibuprofen dissolving in your stomach. Then came the Sunday. It was a bad day. I woke up at a 7, maybe an 8. I could barely get out of bed. But bills don't wait, so I took my cane, the one with the black handle, and I drove to the store to pick up a few things. Apples, chicken, milk. I used my handicapped parking spot. I limped inside, leaning on the cane, taking my time. I didn't notice Casey at first. She was in the produce aisle, but I didn't see her until I heard the click. The distinct shutter sound of a phone camera. I turned. She was holding her phone up, video mode, recording me. What are you doing? I asked. Nothing, she said, but she didn't stop. She kept filming as I grabbed a bag of apples. Just documenting your recovery. You look great today. I felt sick. I told her to stop. She said it was a public place and she could film whatever she wanted. I left the store without buying anything. I drove home shaking. The next morning, I got a text from a coworker named Sarah. Did you see the Facebook post? I didn't. Sarah sent me a screenshot. Casey had posted the video of me in the grocery store, captioned, "Look who's faking it, walks fine when she thinks no one is watching, but has a handicapped placard, typical." The video only showed the part where I walked back to my car, the short distance where the pain had dulled slightly because of the cold air. It didn't show me hobbling into the store. It didn't show the cane at all in the frame. She'd cropped it out. I reported it to Amy that same day. Amy was horrified. She called HR. There was a meeting. Casey said she was just concerned about disability fraud and that she had a right to expose misuse. HR told her to take down the post. She did, but the damage was done. People at work looked at me sideways. Some believed Casey. I started getting weird comments like, "You must be feeling better now, huh? And nice to see you walking without the crutch today." I went to the police. I wanted to file a harassment complaint. The officer at the desk, middle-aged white guy, Texas, looked at me and said, "Ma'am, this is a workplace issue. You need to talk to HR." I told him about the video, the stalking, the way she'd followed me to the store. He shrugged. "She says it was a coincidence. We can't prove intent." I knew exactly what he wasn't saying. I'm black, I'm disabled. In Texas, that's 2 strikes. I left the station feeling smaller than I'd ever felt. 2 weeks later, a package arrived at my house. It was addressed to me, no return label. Inside was a printed screenshot of my address from Google Maps with a red circle around my front door. And a sticky note, "Proof you're not that disabled. You live in a 2-story house with stairs. I saw you walk up them yesterday." That was when everything changed. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I called a lawyer. A friend of my husband's brother specialized in workplace harassment and privacy law. He took the case. He sent a cease and desist to Casey and to our employer. He filed a police report with the body camera off. The officer this time listened because my lawyer was standing there. I also filed a complaint with the EEOC. The company launched an investigation. Casey was put on administrative leave. She claimed she was just trying to protect the company from fake disability claims. But the evidence of stalking, the unauthorized video, the posted address, it piled up. Last week I got the call. Casey was terminated. She's not allowed on company property. I have a restraining order against her now. My lawyer is pursuing a civil suit for invasion of privacy and emotional distress. I don't know if I'll win, but I don't care. I just wanted her to stop. I wanted people to believe me. I look back at that Sunday in the grocery store and I think about Johnny Storm, about how he used a soul bond to betray someone, about how Melinda used white pages to expose my family, about how Casey used a phone to strip away my dignity. It's the same thing underneath. They take something that doesn't belong to them, a secret, a video, a ring, and they justify it with a story that makes them the hero. But they're not heroes, they're thieves. And I'm done letting them write my story. So here I am, sitting in my living room, my grandmother's ring in my hand. It's been over a month since Ethan proposed with it. He's called 3 times, I haven't answered. My mom says I should at least talk to him. But I can't unsee what he did. He took something that was mine, something I trusted him with. He didn't ask, he just took, and now I have to decide what that means for the rest of my life. I'm keeping the ring though, I'll have it reset, I'll wear it on my right hand maybe. A reminder that love doesn't mean ownership. A reminder that I don't owe anyone my privacy, my pain, or my story, not anymore. That ring situation taught me a lot about boundaries. But looking back, I realize I've been dealing with boundary violators my whole life. Like the time at my old office when Melinda decided she had a right to every detail of my personal life. This was about 4 years ago, back when I was working at a marketing firm in Austin. I'd been there 9 years, worked my way up from receptionist to project coordinator. I've always been private. I don't talk about my husband, my twin daughters, my dog, my house. Not because I'm ashamed, I love my family. But work is work, home is home. I need that separation to stay sane. My coworkers would chat about their kids' soccer games, their weekend trips, their husbands' annoying habits. I'd smile and nod and redirect. Oh, that's funny. How was the traffic this morning? That sort of thing. Then Melinda got hired. She was this bubbly blonde, late 20s, always laughing. She made friends fast, too fast. She'd stop by cubicles with coffee, ask about your weekend, remember your dog's name. I thought she was just friendly, but she had a system. She collected information like currency. Someone's divorce, someone's DUI, someone's secret side gig. She'd hold on to it until she needed leverage. I saw her do it to Hank. She found out he'd been sleeping with an intern 3 years ago, and suddenly she was getting all the easy assignments. I saw her.